In this video, I'm going to show you 5 different blend modes that every editor should know how to use. I have this explosion element and it has a black background. Now, many people might think that the way you'd want to get rid of this black background is by using a luma keyer. However, there is a powerful blend mode that can go ahead and remove any black background you have, leaving behind the elements that have color or anything that is brighter in the scene. So if I go ahead and apply this down onto my timeline, we clearly cannot see the backdrop. But if we go on up to the top right under our compositing in Final Cut Pro and change the blend mode from normal, we have all of these different options: add, lighten, screen, color dodge, and linear dodge, which will remove the black background and work in different ways with the brighter parts of the image. The most basic of these different blend modes, and the one that I think everybody should be aware of, is the screen blend mode. If I select that, you'll see how it's leaving behind the brightest parts of the image while completely removing the darkest parts of the image. I could scale this up and have this nice explosion element happening in the scene. However, maybe that's not bright enough for you, so you might want to play around with one of these other ones. One that I really like for this specific effect is the linear dodge, and that adds a lot of brightness into the explosion while still getting rid of those background elements. The next blend mode I think everybody should be aware of is multiply, which is the complete reverse of screen. So if I were to take this ink droplet effect, we can see that there's this ink blob in the center and we have all of these white edges. Now again, a lot of people might assume they would use the luma keyer to get rid of this, but instead they could go to their blend modes and choose multiply. Just like that, we've removed anything that was white in the scene, and anything that is dark in the scene has been left behind. A better visualization of this might be to add in this gradient, and I'll go ahead and set this over to multiply, and you can see how the white is completely gone, whereas the dark is completely opaque. This next blend mode I love using to add in some texture to my scene. Now the way it works is if I have my gradient here, and I'll change this blend mode over to overlay, you'll see that the darker parts of the image actually become more saturated, while the brighter parts of the gradient image become less saturated, and they're also receiving a bit of the luminance from that gradient image. You'll see here at the center, which is middle gray at 50%, is actually receiving 0 change. So if I enable and disable that, you'll see that center section is not changing at all. So what's really cool about this is if I were to apply a texture over the top of my image, I'll go ahead and scale it up quite a bit. And I'm going to apply this spin effect from my Motion Tools plugin, which just auto animates the rotation on this. And then we'll change the spin rate up to something like 5. So now that's going to slowly spin in place. Then if we change the blend mode to overlay, we can see how this gives us a really visually interesting look onto our image. I love doing this when I need to add in some texture to create an interesting looking background, to add in some nice text or something along those lines. This next blend mode I think is absolutely essential, and that is the Stencil and Silhouette blend modes. So I have my ink blob here. I'm going to place that down on the timeline, and we want to go ahead and make it so this is acting as a mask, so we're only seeing parts of the image underneath inside of this blob. So to do that, we'll change the blend mode from normal over to something like Silhouette Luma. And the reason we're choosing Silhouette instead of Stencil is because we want the black parts of the image to come through. So I'll select Silhouette Luma, and now we've created this gorgeous looking cutout of these mountains. It gives us this really nice and visually interesting look on our video. But what's really cool is this also works with text. So I've added this text on my timeline. I'll go over to my video inspector, and I'm going to change this over to Stencil Alpha. And now we are cutting out wherever this text is on our video. This is a great way to introduce titles or create unique masks to draw attention to a certain effect. Now, what if we wanted to add in a background behind this element? Because as it is, anything that is underneath this ink drop is going to be cut out due to the blend mode. For example, if I bring in this metal backdrop and scale it up, we can't see it here at all. That is where the final blend mode comes into play, and that is the behind blend mode. If I wanted to add in a texture behind this element, what I would need to do is actually place whatever element I want behind up above everything. Then from there, I can change the blend mode from normal over to behind. And just like that, we've now added in this texture around the edge while still maintaining that really cool looking mask we had with the ink blob effect. So this is a great way to get around the need for a compound clip if you're somebody who doesn't particularly like working with those inside of Final Cut Pro. If this video was interesting to you, you might want to check out this video where I show you some interesting and unique ways to speed up Final Cut Pro's performance. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.